The history of American soccer, it's been marked by amnesia, animosity, and apologetics.
NASL Championship Soccer.
A lot of very good players came over to the North American Soccer League, starting with the Cosmos and everybody else. George was just part of that.
The North American Soccer League champions.
The best players of that generation ended up playing in the North American Soccer League.
And we've got the Seattle Sounders, who met the Cosmos last year in Soccer Bowl 77.
I said, gosh darn it, this is soccer. This is the biggest international sport in the world.
It really wasn't a long-term vision. Franchises were folding throughout the league.
Davies slanting in, he tries a shot, goal!
All those kids who were watching George Best when he played with the LA Aztecs, they grew up with the game, they understood the game, and they became decision makers. And then their kids started to play. So soccer became part of our culture.
A suspicion that they had about football, that's long gone. The great American red meat-eating soccer hater, that has been shattered.
Soccer is woven into the youth sports fabric and culture.
I think there's a bit of a misconception that don't really get the game over here. Far from it.
Football, little by little, is gaining ground in this society.
It's time now. Look at how many players you have.
You know, there's a saying in America, they say, build it and it will grow, you know, and they will come. Build it and they will come. That's what happened.
You can go down a street in Manhattan and you'll see a Chelsea bar, you'll see a Liverpool bar, you'll see a Manchester United bar. We're not close to the ceiling, not even remotely.
Did I say heating up? Holy Toledo!
Football, the world's most popular game. The United States of America, the most sports-mad nation on earth. Historically, football has struggled to gain a foothold stateside, but the revolution has now arrived. Manchester United's links to football in America span several generations, and the growth of the game itself has its foundations rooted deep within the American past.
Really, the history of soccer in the United States, most people don't recognize this, goes back to the 19th century. The laws of the game were drawn up in London at the Freemasons Tavern in 1863. We were in the middle of a civil war at that time, but as soon as the war was over, in 1866 here in New York City, the laws of the game were published for the first time. And people were playing football in Central Park, certainly in the 1870s, 1880s, we know for sure. And believe it or not, in 1894, we had our very first professional league here. Actually, the third professional league after England and Scotland. Now, 1894, that's the year the first football arrived on the shores of Brazil. So when people think American soccer still has a ways to catch up with the rest of the world, that's a misconception.
Although this first league soon folded, the influx of immigrants kept the game alive, and new leagues formed. The U.S. national team also performed beyond expectations when they finished third at the inaugural FIFA World Cup in 1930. Inspired by their forefathers, the U.S. team at the 1950 World Cup also caused one of the greatest upsets, beating one of the favorites, England, 1-0. Walter Barr was the man who set up that goal.
Walter Barr was playing in the American Soccer League All-Star team against Manchester United when they came to New York and played here in 1950. In fact, Busby offered Walter Barr a contract, but the contract he was being offered to go to Manchester would have been actually less pay than what he was making as a school teacher in Philadelphia. So although Manchester United were already recognized as one of the world's great clubs, Walter Barr couldn't accept the contract, and so to me it's a great historical what could have been.
But Walter wasn't the only man to have caught Sir Matt Busby's eye. The U.S. captain against England that day was Scotsman Eddie McIlvenney, and he ended up making a handful of appearances for United during the 1950-51 season. Despite the successes of the national men's team, the game was continuing to fade as other sports took the limelight. It wasn't until two leagues merged to form the North American Soccer League in 1968 that football was put back on the agenda.
Soccer Sounders style.
Playing the game to win. That's the name of the game we play.
Our style isn't a ballet with a ball. It's 90 minutes flat out.
People were still seeing soccer as a bit of a foreign
Soccer finally comes of age in the USA.
Oh, the
the marketing wasn't really very effective.
Playing the game to win.
The Cosmos were doing anything to get people to come out. We played at Yankee Stadium in 1971, but attendances were so poor. We relocated to Hofstra University in 1972. And again, we were getting small crowds, 5,000, 6,000. But that all changed in 1975.
The most celebrated player in the history of the game. To millions of soccer fans, he is known as Pelé. Today, he joins the New York Cosmos and the North American Soccer League.
Our first general manager, Clive Toy, as soon as he formed the Cosmos, really had an eye to bringing the world's most famous footballer to New York. That was the vision all along, and he pursued that rather relentlessly. He also pursued George Best with a great deal of fervor, and we thought we had his signature secured, but lo and behold, George Best didn't show up to the press conference to sign the contract.
The world's most popular sport, soccer. And add to that, the world's most famous team, and you have an unbeatable combination. Cosmos Soccer.
The whole Cosmos country phenomenon really kicked in, and that was also due to not only having Pelé, but by then we'd also signed Franz Beckenbauer, Carlos Alberto. It really became the first Galacticos, if you will.
George, welcome to Seattle, and certainly welcome back to the North American Soccer League.
Thank you, it's nice to be back.
After flirting with the Cosmos, George Best joined the LA Aztecs and then the Fort Lauderdale Strikers before finding his way to San Jose and the Earthquakes in 1980.
Those were very heady times for the NASL, the league. I mean, it was Beckenbauer and Pelé and Canali, and all these guys were coming over from Europe and other parts of the world to play. The owners were spending big money, and so we in San Jose started wondering, well, when are we going to get our premier player? And when we heard that George Best was coming, of course, we were thrilled. We were very excited because it's the first time that we really had a marquee player come and play for the Quakes.
Everybody was really ambassadors for the game, and when you would spend your afternoons going out and going and teaching young kids how to kick the ball, or going to assemblies and making speeches and little Johnny's birthday party, whatever it did to spread the faith, people really didn't know what it was all about.
George, have you finally found a home in San Jose, a permanent home, or can we expect to see you traveling back to England after this year?
Well, before I left, I had 3 or 4 offers from English clubs. So I'm just going to play until the end of the season and decide at the end of the season what I'm going to do.
Obviously, George had his demons, and so he wouldn't show up every day. But the period that he was here with me in '82, I had moved up here, and he really was in a pretty good frame of mind. He just had Callum, his son. I can honestly say he was behaving himself.
Georgie Best, the enfant terrible of the soccer world, a remarkably skillful man.
His reputation preceded him. We knew there maybe were going to be some issues with him, but hey, he was fabulous. And of course, the thing that I remember the most was that spectacular goal that he scored. I mean, I was sitting right in the stands that day in 1981 and watched him score that goal, and that was magic. I mean, it was magic.
Best maneuvering unbelievably. Best still has it. I don't believe this move.
That's the greatest soccer goal I've ever seen. Wow. You talk about individual effort. That is the greatest soccer goal I've ever seen, Philly. Oh, man. Outstanding.
The demons came back right here, and so he went off, and the Cosmos came into town, and there was a big get-together. Pelé's there, Beckenbauer's there, everybody's there, and they're all talking about how wonderful George is, how great he is, and they showed the goal of the year, blah, blah, blah. And I guess you just fancy, when you heard all these accolades, you just felt like celebrating that a little bit, and went out and never showed up for the game.
The league had signed up for a very poor broadcasting deal. The games weren't televised at really great times, in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, people were out doing their thing. And the investors in the league overexpanded very quickly. And there wasn't really a thorough vetting process for those ownership groups.
It did take off. I mean, we went from, the league went from 12 teams to 24. And I think it expanded too quickly. Everybody tried to emulate the Cosmos. If it didn't work, they didn't have the runway to sustain those losses. And so teams would come in and teams would drop out again. Obviously not a good business model.
I actually was a minority owner of the Earthquakes back in the early 80s. I lost too much money, so I don't like to talk about it. My wife hates me to talk about it. But anyway, I did it. And one of the things that we thought when we invested in the team early on was that we thought we'd be laughing all the way to the bank. I mean, you went out any weekend, the fields were filled with children playing soccer, and that's still the case today. The trick has been to move them from being players to fans. And that's still a challenge that the MLS has.
With the demise and dissolution of the NASL in 1985, football was once again in trouble. Salvation came with the kind of party perfect for the U.S., the greatest show on earth.
When I first came here, there was still a suspicion of football, a fear of football. I remember when the World Cup was awarded to America, one of the congressmen, Jack Kemp, went onto the floor of Congress and said it's very important to remind American youth that football is something that you pass and throw and run with, and not the stuff that's coming over here, which is to do with European socialism, which kind of captured up the sneering suspicion that they had about football. That's long gone. That debate is over.
I think without the World Cup here in '94, you wouldn't see MLS. You wouldn't see a lot of the interest that we have. I think at the time, like soccer, it was still like a bit hokey. It's the most popular sport in the world, and here it's like no one really kind of got it, and then that was here, and then it was like, all right, let's kind of get into it. And then the last, well, 30 years now almost, it's completely different.
There were a lot of people experiencing it live for the first time, and the World Cup was unavoidable. It was in these massive cathedrals in our country that had been known to house other sports. And all of a sudden, I remember I was a little kid. I went down to Giant Stadium, where typically my dad took me to watch an American football game, and I went to watch Roberto Baggio play for Italy. And seeing heroes that I saw on my tiny TV on that Sunday before church in front of me on a field that I knew, a field that I thought was only for, you know, American football, made me realize that the sport's ours too.
FIFA had stipulated to the USA that as part of the agreement to award the World Cup in 1994, the country needed to form a top-level professional league. And in 1995, Major League Soccer was born.
There was a ton of excitement, and then years 2 and 3 it just went phew, and there really wasn't a lot of interest. It was a pretty crappy facility. 2001, the league almost folded, and then kind of from there, they got some good investments. People believed in it, and it's sort of grown year after year.
And this boost in popularity owed much to the signing of another United number 7 and global superstar. Say hello, America. Beckham, right 7.
I was selling tickets for the New York Red Bulls at the time. I mean, when Beckham signed, I had 7 months of rent in the bank right away. You know, it was massive. It got a lot of non-traditional football fans out, you know, for their first experience, which was huge. The league really needed that and really needed that excitement. He was a game changer.
He really put the league, and specifically his club, the LA Galaxy, on the map globally, because David was a player that every football fan in the world knew. And now they knew the LA Galaxy, and now they knew Major League Soccer.
David Beckham put numbers back in the stadia like we had when Pelé was here, like we had when Beckenbauer and Alberto were here, but it wasn't for the first time ever. Right. When Pelé arrived, that was the first time we were getting crowds in excess of 50,000. Really, it was a matter of trying to get people to come back out for pro soccer.
Obviously, when he came into the league, we started the designated player rule, otherwise known as the Beckham rule, and that has really changed the landscape of our league. So I think he's had a profound effect on moving the sport forward. If you had asked me if we'd be sitting here with 22 teams on the verge of going to 28 in the next few years, I would have said you're crazy.
I always said that my commitment would stay strong to football in America, and being an owner of a franchise there is something that I'm excited about and something that's going to keep me pretty busy.
More and more guys want to come to MLS right now. From Spain, from England, from kind of everywhere, and it's not just guys at the end of their career. One player I brought over, Marco Senna, signed with the New York Cosmos, and he's like, the thing I like most here is I can be in shorts on a Tuesday night eating a cheeseburger and no one's bothering me. Fast forward a year, we fly to Valencia to play in his testimonial against Villarreal, and he gets off the plane, he's like Michael Jordan. MLS is so stable. You know you're going to get your paycheck on the 1st and the 15th. You know you're going to travel well, they're going to feed you well, they're going to wash your gear. It's a very good professional league.
Whilst the U.S. men have taken time to challenge at the elite level, the women have quickly become the dominant force of the world game. The U.S. women's national side won the inaugural World Cup in 1991 and went on to win the 1999 tournament and a record 3rd title in 2015.
The National Women's Soccer League has really grown the sport for women, young girls who are supporting the league in record numbers. So it's really tremendous to see how it's grown throughout the last number of years and really increased the overall popularity of our sport in this country.
The momentum for both domestic leagues coincided with a huge boost in popularity for the English game, as the Premier League found an audience desperate to see the world's best in action every week.
When I first got here, I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. So we basically have kind of 8-9 hours of live Premier League action on a Saturday and 7 or 8 on a Sunday. Each season I think we reach around 30 million fans. That's a lot. Yes, of course, the likes of the NFL and the NBA get that all the time, but it is growing literally by the week.
We're kind of, in the forefront of trying to grow the game here in the Premier League in the era that it is. It's exploded, the numbers are going crazy, and we're at the stage where most people I meet, and once they recognise you or talk about Premier League, will tell you which team they support. Everybody likes a team.
You can be a diehard NFL fan, NBA fan, and still support Manchester United on the weekend, still be a huge Premier League fan. And you can go down a street in Manhattan and you'll see a Chelsea bar, you'll see a Liverpool bar, you'll see a Manchester United bar.
For the United fans in New York, it's often an early morning trek to catch their team in action.
I got up at 5:30. I got to the train station like 6:15 to make an hour journey to Manhattan so I can watch Manchester United play Middlesbrough. The first game I saw Manchester United play was the FA Cup final against Liverpool in 1977 because we had just bought a television, a little black and white television, and everybody was huddled around this television watching this game because we've never seen anything like it. Growing up in New York, everybody that I know either a baseball Yankee fan or Mets, or they played Giants or Jets football, but I was the only football fan, real football fan. I would say up until '94, it was kind of isolated, but after the World Cup came here, it became more of an explosion.
It spread out a ton. In the beginning it was just a few hardcore people, people coming over who were originally from Manchester or England or whatever. But now a lot of people that have never even been there, are part of it and joining, and it's really spreading out. The game in general too, but especially with Man United.
And when I first moved to New York, you had to pay-per-view the games. You'd sit at home, it's $25 a game, being shared, and ever since then, it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger. We now watch more games on a Saturday and Sunday than anyone else can. Every game is televised, everything's brilliant.
The renaissance of football in the U.S. after the World Cup in 1994 coincided with United's greatest period of domination. Americans love a winner, and United became their #1 team.
We had access to Man United games. That was the only team we could watch 4 days late. So every week we'd watch our United game, Cantona gigs. We had our Umbro Red United kits, and that was pretty much all we watched. That was the first team we were introduced to. So myself, my friends, we were all massive United fans growing up.
When I moved back to New York in 1995, you would see the odd Manchester United jersey. Now you see Manchester United jerseys, jackets, scarves. The explosion of interest in the Premier League has also had an effect here.
Many Americans have followed football for 20, 30 years. They've seen United as the powerhouse, but there's many fresh-eyed American sports fans who are turning on for the first time, who've only known a world in which Southampton are a powerhouse. But they're still very much drawn to the myth of Manchester United and the kind of legacy and the history. It's a juggernaut brand in America, just as it is everywhere else in the world.
I remember 25 years ago when they started, but now it's quite different. And in fact, well, we are living in a global world, so our football, our players, our teams, they're very familiar to American people, because they have the opportunity to watch our games every weekend.
In the last few years, independent research has come out. They ask people, what is your favorite sport to consume? And #1, the National Football League. But among the 18 to 30-year-old group and 12 to 17, so essentially people under the age of 30, professional soccer is #2, ahead of basketball, ahead of baseball, ahead of hockey.
What's so cool about thinking of the future of the game is we're not close to the ceiling, not even remotely. I mean, the growth that is possible in this game. I get kind of chills thinking about what could happen.
It's still this aspirational sport. It's still driving trends for so many brands here off the field. I mean, it's something that everyone wants to be part of, playing, watching. It's insane. It's actually insane here.
The popularity of the game has been built on the firm foundations of youth participation. At a school in inner-city New York, one coach has transformed the lives of his students.
Vidic, Coach Jake.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having us here.
My pleasure. Come. I always say it's about the heart, not the hardware. You know, it's what's in here. And this team of mine has won a great many championships. And inside is what counts. But with it comes some hardware. 16 years with the major trophy. And then each year we get another trophy, as you can see.
You are working 40 years.
40 years in education and coaching. Right. I always compare myself, hopefully I'm going to make it to 73 like Sir Alex Ferguson. I believe he went to 73.
So you have as much trophy as he has, so you're doing really well.
Kids in America, they go to college, and the majority of them, and they get to go for free because they played soccer at this school. And we've had 12 professionals play in the school as well.
So that's great. Are there any troubles in the school?
It used to be bad. It
now?
used to be hard. Better.
Better?
Better. But the kids I deal with, nah, they don't get in trouble.
Because they're in sports, that's good.
That's
actually,
right,
you help them actually go out of the...
Yes, exactly. A lot of my boys have economic need and they're trying to climb into a better life through the sport. The program here is what these kids live for. The reason they're in school, the reason they want to succeed is the sport. This is the championship this year, and we won it with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left and a golden goal.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw that you have different nationalities here, so is it people coming from abroad? They're the ones who's actually more interested in playing soccer, or you have local people still?
It started out with a lot of new immigrants. Some of them, just came here, and they found out about me. I mean, been doing this a long time. And now the team is comprised of almost 100% immigrants, but many of them were born here now. So they're first-generation Americans.
That's good.
So they came from, and they come from, a majority West African. I've had Peruvians, I've had lots of Colombians, and I just had my first Serbian play for me this year.
Where is he?
We're gonna find
him. Is he playing?
I'm gonna bring him.
Play?
He doesn't quite play. He plays. But he's not broken into the starting lineup.
It's big competition.
It's competition. You want to get on that field, you better be good.
Ćao.
Ćao. Nikola.
Nikola, tak si dobar?
Yes.
Čujem da igraš fudbal.
Da.
Jesmo te poremetili malo, izvukli smo te sa časa. Je bilo dobro jer smo te izvukli Dobro. What position you play?
Striker, center defensive mid. Both positions.
Cool.
He's a tall boy, no?
Yeah, tall. How old are you?
16, right?
16.
You're 16 still? Yeah. A baby.
Are you born here or?
Ne, Srbija.
Došao, ali kada si došao?
Pre 2 godine.
A, tamo 2 godine si ovdje. Kako se snašao?
Pa dobro.
Ti okej?
Da.
Hi guys. What is that?
This is books. I got him out of class.
Okay.
Israel.
No way.
Isn't that good? Hey, Kamari did real well this year.
So many times growing up, I swear to God, I watched you play like 1,000 times.
Where are you from?
I'm from Jamaica.
Jamaica?
Yeah.
How long are you here?
I've been here basically my whole life.
Okay.
Yeah. So they know you pretty well, huh? That's good.
Probably. That's
good. We like that. Hey, Davey, I like your hair, man.
Hi.
Come in here. Come in here.
I am Marcelo. Hey, you play for Manchester United. Oh, British.
How you doing?
Good.
Good, no bad.
This is our Marcelo.
Nah, little Marcelo. No.
Hi. Wow, you're a big man, huh? What are you playing? What position? Goalie. Okay. Not mess with the goalie. I'm not having these shakes. Even when I was a football player, I never did, but okay, I try.
You guys know, you know this gentleman? A few of you know him, Yeah. All right. I hope you aspire to be as good as he is, as a person and as a player.
I give you a favor, guys. Actually, I took you from the class, so thank you. Yeah? No, you're doing great stuff, guys. To be fair, you don't have a field, and obviously work hard and as well train, so well done.
As the growth continues, what does the future hold for the beautiful game in America?
Growing up, a lot of American athletes play a sport to get a scholarship to the university. Very few go on to be professional, but I think soccer, it's so incredibly different where, you know, you can become a professional at 16 and really have a viable career where, you know, in basketball, you know, in the US, it's kind of the NBA, maybe you play in Europe, American football, it's the NFL, maybe you can play in Canada, but there's so many different opportunities within the soccer world globally.
Once the coaching comes in and that raises to a level, they're going to produce better talent. 5- and 6-year-old kids now are not playing American football, they're not playing baseball, they're not playing hockey, they're all only playing over here is known as soccer. And they're going to grow up with the game, and these are going to be the next wave of kids who's going to be a generation that we're going to see that will certainly make a mark on world football.
So the next generation of U.S. talent will eventually bring a new challenge to the established elite of world football. World Cup success will be a major target for the American sports machine. This nation demands success, demands winners. Nothing else will do.